The first time she mentioned hiring a DJ, I thought she was half joking. Not sarcastic, not ironic, just light-hearted in the way she often was when proposing something she knew I'd hesitate about but ultimately agreed to. We weren't planning a music festival. This was my birthday, our friends, our home, a night to be shared in laughter and familiarity. But she had another vision. "Let's get a DJ," she said one morning, casually, like she was suggesting a side dish for dinner. I raised an eyebrow. "A DJ? For a backyard birthday party?" She leaned on the counter, stirring coffee she didn't even drink anymore. Almond milk and cinnamon, like always. Not just any DJ, someone with style, someone who curates an atmosphere, not just plays music. She showed me his profile, polished, moody, aesthetic in every frame, sunsets bleeding over silhouettes, slow-motion confetti, couples blurred at the edges. He was young, clearly popular, one of those creators who built a name by making others feel like extras in their own highlight reel. He has a following, she added, booked by fashion brands, indie films. He knows what he's doing. I shrugged. All right, if it makes the night better. She smiled, and it was that particular smile, the one she wore when she'd already made the decision days ago. He arrived early. Car smelled like cologne and vinyl. Pelican cases with cords coiled neatly like serpents waiting for command. He walked in confident, not arrogant, eyes scanning, fingers already adjusting knobs, levels, tension, and then there was the way she greeted him. "You made it," she said, like welcoming a co-conspirator. He smiled, that kind of effortless smirk some men carry from birth. They talked gear, energy pacing, the arc of the night's emotion. She gave suggestions, not instructions. He nodded, thoughtful. They shared a language I didn't speak, measured in tempo. Mood shifts, lighting warmth. I watched them the way one watches a foreign film without subtitles. I understood nothing, but I caught the tone, the undercurrent, the careful timing of smiles, the way she brushed her hair back every time he looked directly at her. Still, I wanted to believe in her excitement, wanted to believe she was just being generous, creative, immersed in the curation of something beautiful for me, because she had always been like this, extraordinary when given the freedom to shape ambience. She once redesigned our whole living room for a dinner with 4 friends. Once wrote a playlist titled, Us. If we were a season. So I let it go. Let it flow. Let the lights be adjusted. The speakers tested. The cables hidden under rugs. Let her wear that silver dress, the one with the open back that always made heads turn. Let her walk beside the DJ as he carried gear like she was a roadie. Like she belonged in the booth. She told me, after a sound check, that she was just making sure everything felt cinematic, that she wanted me to have a memory that would play like a music video in my mind. "Smile tonight," she whispered when we were alone, pinning the mic to his lapel. "This is your party, I just want to give you a soundtrack." I smiled. I told myself it was love. Because sometimes, love doesn't scream, it hums beneath the bass. And when the first song played, I didn't hear the danger, only the rhythm she wanted me to remember. And in that moment, I danced. God help me, I danced. The music was loud, purposefully loud, the kind that makes people forget how ordinary their lives are. Lyrics blurred into laughter. Off-key harmonies clashed beautifully with the clinking of glasses. My friends were in their element, leaning into choruses like they'd written the songs themselves. Everyone was accounted for, except her. At first, I didn't notice. The night was full, after all, stories overlapping, drinks being topped off, jokes echoing in the patio lights. But midway through someone's rendition of an 80s power ballad, I scanned the room out of habit. And she wasn't there. Not on the couch, not near the bar, not behind the camera where she usually lingered to capture candid moments. "Hey," I leaned toward MIA, one of our friends. "Did you see where she went?" MIA shrugged, distracted by the mic. "Maybe she's with the DJ. She said she was gonna check the playlist." It sounded reasonable. She liked to be involved. Liked things just right. Still, something pulled at me, a thread in my chest. I told myself it was nothing. That she was just out back. Maybe helping him with cables or checking the sound. I stepped out into the yard. The night air was heavy, full of leftover heat and anticipation. The deck lights were still warm to the touch, casting halos on the grass. The DJ booth glowed softly, but he wasn't there either. And neither was she. My feet moved slower than my thoughts. I checked the kitchen, empty. The hallway, empty. Finally, I circled back to the living room and saw her phone, resting face down on the sofa cushion. Unattended, unlocked. That was when the silence inside me grew louder than the karaoke outside. Not suspicion, not jealousy, just a subtle shift. A missing chorus in a song you know by heart. You don't always catch betrayal in its grand performance. Sometimes, it tiptoes off stage during the bridge. And all that's left is an empty spotlight and a lyric that no longer lands where it used to. The morning after felt like static. The kind that buzzes in your chest before you even open your eyes. The living room was a battlefield of party remnants, half-empty glasses. Napkins balled up in corners. A tilted mic stand leaning like it had something to confess. Sunlight pierced the patio doors, casting long shadows across deflated balloons and the limp strings of party lights still clinging to their posts. I started picking up without thinking. Just movement to fill the spaces between breaths. There's something strangely sacred about the morning after. A kind of stillness that amplifies whatever truth tried to hide in the noise the night before. That's when I noticed it. On the side table near the DJ booth. A GoPro. Still plugged in. Still warm. It sat there like a forgotten secret. Charging silently beside a pair of headphones and a used coaster. The DJ must have left it in the rush. Or maybe not. Maybe he meant to come back. Maybe he forgot more than just hardware. I picked it up. It was light, harmless, like a prop from the previous scene. I didn't mean to check the footage. I told myself I'd just set it aside. But curiosity is rarely so generous. I tapped the touchscreen. The thumbnails loaded in a neat grid, small windows into moments already past. Laughter frozen in digital stills. Flashbacks with a battery icon. I selected one. Almost randomly. Music played. The camera panned across a room full of joy. My friends, singing, arms flung around each other, voices too loud and too free. Then another clip. A close-up of cocktail glasses. The flicker of LED candles. Someone spinning in slow motion. Her, maybe, no, just a guest. Then the next one. The footage jumped to a hallway. Dim lighting, barely visible at first. And then, there she was. She was leaning against the wall near the guest bathroom. Her hair pulled to one side. Her mouth moving in a whisper I couldn't hear. But I didn't need audio. He stepped into frame. The DJ. They weren't touching, not yet, but they didn't need to be. The frame was full of everything words couldn't unsay. His hand brushed her wrist. She didn't pull away. Her eyes flicked to the camera once, briefly. Then back to him. The hallway light was low. Tinted gold, casting their outlines in half shadow. They looked like a scene cut from a film, one the director didn't mean to release. I paused the video. My reflection stared back at me in the black screen. She hadn't just left the room during karaoke. She had entered another story. And someone forgot to yell cut. I put the GoPro down. Quietly, like placing a fragile object I didn't want to admit I had touched. The weight of knowing didn't come all at once. It seeped in, like a slow leak beneath the foundation. The room didn't spin. The world didn't end. It just tilted, slightly off-center, just enough to ruin the balance I thought I had. Some truths aren't explosive. They hum, just like the music that had covered their footsteps. There is a silence that swells, not with peace, but with pressure. It's not absence, it's presence. The kind of silence that walks into a room before you do and stays long after you leave. That was the silence I chose. No broken dishes, no slammed doors, no confrontation scene worthy of a Netflix miniseries. Because some betrayals come not with fire but with frost. And this one, hers, was ice in the bloodstream. Quiet, calculated, and cold. I sat at the kitchen table while the morning sun cut through the blinds in pale, sterile lines. The GoPro still sat on the counter. The footage had already burned its shape into my memory, her silhouette in half-light. The DJ's body leaning too close. The way she tilted her head and laughed with her whole mouth. Like I hadn't been standing in the next room, singing my heart out to a group of old friends. But there was no confrontation to be had. Not because I was afraid, but because the truth had already said everything. What else could words add to a story that had written itself so clearly? I powered up my laptop, each keystroke as deliberate as a farewell. I dragged the video file into editing software, not to manipulate, not to dramatize, but to distill. I trimmed the noise, the chatter, the prelude. I left the core, 47 seconds, a living, breathing pause between trust and betrayal. No soundtrack, just silence and the soft hum of complicity. When it was done, I uploaded it to Dropbox. I named the folder, Your Playlist, Uncensored. Not because I wanted to be clever, not because I needed revenge, but because it was honest. Honest in the way she used to be when she made us playlists for road trips. Honest like the first mixtape she burned me when we were still discovering each other's favorite songs. Music had always been her love language, so I used her language to speak. I opened a blank message. Not a single emoji, no explanation, no anger, just one sentence. Not all tracks need to be remixed. I hit send. I didn't wait, didn't reload, didn't hope she'd write back with shame or defense or some poetic apology. I wasn't curious about her response, because responses are for people still in conversation. And we weren't anymore. I closed the laptop, turned off the lights, went to bed in the same room I'd shared with her for years. But this time, the mattress felt like a stage that had seen its final act. She was still in the house. Maybe, but I had left the story. What do you do when someone who used to compose your world starts playing notes that were never meant for your ears? You stop listening. You stop dancing. You walk off the floor and let the music echo for itself. Some truths are best delivered not through a fight, but through a file, and some songs never deserve a replay. Because the sharpest justice doesn't always arrive with noise. Sometimes, it arrives quietly, in a shared folder, with a link she'll never be able to unclick. It began with a ping. A harmless notification from a group chat labeled, The Real Ones. A digital space that had once been full of memes, concert plans, and arguments over who owed who for wings. That morning, though, it held a new message, a video clip from the night before. Dude, you were killing it, one of my friends wrote. I tapped play. There I was, center stage of our patio, mic in one hand, drink in the other, swaying off beat to a nostalgic chorus. The camera panned left, there was the DJ. Smirking, nodding to my rhythm, and raising his glass toward me. We clinked. My smile was wide, unguarded, my eyes bright. In that frame, I looked like a man who believed the night was his. Like someone who thought music still meant joy. And then, behind me, her. She stepped into the background. Just long enough to be visible. Her hand grazed the DJ's back as she walked past. Not intentional, not overt, but familiar. She didn't notice the camera. Or if she did, she didn't care. The song continued. My voice cracked on the high notes. My friends howled with laughter. In the background, she laughed too. It was a laugh I had once loved. The kind that lilted upward. Light as carbonation. The kind I once said could fix bad days. I paused the video. Stared at my own face on the screen. Smiling. Performing. Not for her, but for a version of myself who didn't know what track had already changed. That was the cruelty of it, not just the betrayal, but the delay, the distance between the moment and its meaning, between when you live something and when you realize what it really was. She moved through the rest of the day like nothing had shifted. She handed me my coffee like she always did, with one sugar, no cream. She hummed a song under her breath. It wasn't one the DJ played, but it sounded close. Everything looked normal, but I no longer trusted any sound. The laughter felt dubbed, the words felt rehearsed, even the silence, it had a hum. A beat, a syncopation I hadn't noticed before. My heart didn't race, it quieted, and in that quiet, I heard everything. Because when betrayal dances under noise, it depends on the assumption that you're not really listening. But I was. And now, I would never hear that night the same way again. Some parties are remembered not by the song played loudest, but by the one that stopped without anyone noticing. The path around the lake curved like memory, smooth, familiar, but hiding moments that could trip you if you weren't careful. It was early morning, the kind of hour when the world still feels undecided. The fog hung low over the water, like breath held between two strangers who haven't decided if they'll speak. I walked alone, no dog, no phone calls, just me and the ache in my chest that pulsed quieter than my footsteps. My earbuds were in, but the music wasn't playing, not because I forgot, but because I didn't want to hear anything outside of me. I needed to listen inward, needed to know if the silence inside was still mine, or if she had taken that too. We used to walk this lake together, played our favorite playlists on a shared speaker clipped to my backpack. She liked indie acoustic with soft female vocals. I leaned into piano instrumentals that made her roll her eyes and then cry 2 minutes later. You like sad music for a happy person, she once said. Maybe I just knew that even happiness needs shadows to be real. I sat down on the bench beneath the weeping willow. The same bench where she kissed my hand on our first anniversary. Back then, we believed in rituals, in soundtracks, in timing. Now, I didn't trust timing anymore. In the earbuds, there was nothing but the faint hiss of digital emptiness. It sounded like space, or maybe a heart trying to remember how to beat alone. And in that silence, I heard something, not a voice, not a sound, but a realization, rising like steam off the surface of the lake. Betrayal doesn't always sneak in through silence. Sometimes, it arrives through noise, laughter, bass drops, toasts, a microphone passed from friend to friend. And beneath it all, the hush of a heart going still. That was when I understood. You can be surrounded by sound, and still be completely unheard. And if your heart goes quiet in the middle of celebration, that's not nothing, that's everything. I didn't need any more footage. No more screenshots, no more confessions, because I had felt the track skip before the beat even dropped. You only have to miss the rhythm once to know the song's not coming back the way it was. So I stood, removed the earbuds, and let the real music return. Wind across the lake, ducks skimming the surface, the distant chime of a jogger's keys. All unscripted, all unfiltered. For the first time in days, I wasn't listening to the echo of someone else's lies. I was just listening, and finally, I heard something true. Not a lyric, not a melody, but the pulse of my own heart. Steady, single, still here,